Hey, everybody. Sorry for the awkward lack of pre-show music, but that's our brand, is awkward, So here we are. My name is Will Clegg. I'm going to be your host tonight, and this is Awkward Teenage Years. How many people have never been to one of our shows before? Round of applause. All right, a few. Great. So everybody else, thank you for coming back. And for those of you who've never been here, this is a show where it's exactly what the title says. We're going to tell true stories about our awkward teenage years. So this is a lot of stories about middle and high school, having crushes and first kisses and experimenting with drugs and getting in trouble and fighting with our parents and all those fun things. But mostly it's about coming of age. That's what this show is really all about. So thank you so much for coming out on a Wednesday night to sit in this basement and listen to us relive our traumatic past. So just in case any latecomers come in, I'm gonna tell you a little story before we get the show started. We have 5 of the best of New York storytellers here for you tonight. We're very excited to have them all come up here. But right now, I want to tell you a little story about a scar that I have. I don't know if y'all know Ophira Eisenberg. She's a friend of the show. She just recently did a solo show across town at the Soho Playhouse called Leaving a Mark, about all of her physical and emotional scars. And it got me thinking about this one that I have on my hand right here, which you maybe can't see. It's very small, right beneath my wedding ring here, in this little circular spot. So I'm in the 8th grade in junior high school, and I'm walking to my 7th period class, the last class of the day. And my buddy Tom stops me in the hallway. Tom is a year older than me. He's in 9th grade. And he's one of those kids who just turned into a grown-ass man when puberty hit. He's immediately so much taller than everybody. He has a full beard. He's very long hair. He's just a big, heavy-set guy to begin with. And he's I call him my friend, but he's really sort of the head of our friend group, we're friendly, I guess would be better to say. But he stops me and says, "Hey man, I really need a cigarette. You want to ditch 7th period and go smoke?" We like to pretend that we were addicted to nicotine when we were 13, 14 years old, because smoking was cool, right? And obviously we didn't need to go have a cigarette, but he loved to act like he had the jitters at lunchtime and have to run off campus to smoke a cigarette. But I'd never been invited with Tom to go smoke before by ourselves. And so I say, okay, let's do it. This is out of character for me. I don't ever skip class. I kind of live in 2 worlds in junior high. And part of me is I'm a straight A student. I'm on the student council. I never get in trouble. The other part of me is the outward-facing part. I've got long hair. I wear T-shirts with Guns N' Roses and Rage Against the Machine and Metallica on them to school every day with big baggy jeans and a chain that goes to my wallet. And I do this because I used to get bullied for being a nerdy kid when I first got to that school in the 7th grade. I didn't like being bullied, so I changed my whole persona over the summer into this guy. You can see this is the awkward stage of my hair growing long, and I started hanging out with the kids who did the bullying, so that I wouldn't get bullied anymore. But I also secretly really liked getting good grades and being on the student council, so I continued to do those things and just not talk to those guys about it, which is perfect, because they didn't care about academics at all, so it just never came up. And so one of the things that I started doing, after growing my hair out and changing my wardrobe was I started smoking cigarettes, because that's what all the cool kids did. And there was a spot right across the street from the school. The school bus parking lot is here, the athletic fields are right next to it, where I would play soccer in the springtime. But when I'm not playing soccer, as soon as the school day was over, I would go straight across the street and hang out on that corner with my idiot friends, and we'd smoke cigarettes in broad view of everyone, but this is a public school, so they can't do anything when you're not on the school grounds. So as the buses are all pulling out and driving by, kids are hanging out the window and yelling at us, we're just sitting there holding our cigarettes like this, like we're at James Dean in Times Square, and puffing on our cigarettes and looking up and just kind of nodding at everybody because we're so fucking cool. But now Tom wants to go smoke with me during school, on the school campus. Not something I've ever done before. And I know in my 7th grade class is an art class, and the teacher is very unlikely to notice that I'm not there. So I feel pretty confident in getting away with skipping, but I'm a little worried about getting caught smoking at school. So as we're walking, Tom explains to me, the rules. And the rules are, if a staff member, a teacher, or whatever comes around and sees us, you have to get the cigarette out of your hand as quickly as possible. Don't blow any smoke out, because if they don't see you smoking, they can't do anything. They can't even search you for your cigarettes. I don't know if any of this is true, but this is a guy who gets in trouble a lot, So I figure, anyone knows, he knows. And so I believe him. I trust him. He's the head of the friend group, So we walk over to the baseball field, which is just a few hundred yards away from the school building, and we go, and they have these old cement dugouts. You can't see out the back or the sides. You can only see the field from the dugouts. So it's a good little hiding spot. Everybody else should be in class, either teaching or learning. And so we were on our own out there, and we light up our butts. And we're just hanging out, smoking, feeling very cool. Tom's pretending like he's all of a sudden relaxed now. Nicotine still makes me kind of shaky, but I'm trying to play it cool. And then all of a sudden we hear this older, gruffer voice going, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And we look up, and it's Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris is best described as a dusty man. He's got salt and pepper hair and a white mustache, but he's always dirty because he's a PE coach, teacher, and then he also does a lot of maintenance around the school, and then he's also the baseball coach. And it's baseball season. He's walking over probably to get the field prep for the team to come and practice. We haven't thought about this, and we freeze. I've got my cigarette in my left hand here, down by my side. Tom has just taken a full inhale. And he freezes, and we don't know what to do, but he's coming right towards us. And I remember what Tom said is, don't let them see the cigarette. And so I take the cigarette and just squeeze it into my hand. And I can't make a noise or a face because I don't want him to know. And then I just subtly drop it next to my foot and kind of kick it back behind the dugout. And then Tom blows out a huge plume of smoke. And he is busted. And Mr. Morris comes right over. He's like, "You kids can't be smoking. You're supposed to be in class." He's just losing his mind. And he takes Tom, and he's going to send him straight to the principal's office. And he just tells me to go back to class. And the rules are real, right? But now I've got this wound in my hand, and I can't tell anybody about it. So I can't go to the school nursery. I just have to suck it up and go to art class and just kind of sneak in, hope the teacher doesn't notice, and then go home with this wound. But thankfully, my father is a physician, and I learned how to dress my own wounds as a kid, and he has all the stuff there in the house. So I was able to just go home and dump some rubbing alcohol on it and bandage it up and just tell my parents that I cut it in art class. And I think that was the day I learned that smoking really isn't that cool. And that's when I started quitting smoking, although I will say it did take me 10 years to finish quitting smoking. And if you may be wondering, young Will, why did you not just drop the cigarette next to your foot and step on it with your shoe? And I think about that very often because I don't know what the answer is. So that's the story of this little tiny scar, which if you want to see after the show, I'll be happy to show you up close, okay? All right, that says enough from me, I think, for tonight. So we're going to get the show going here, and I'm going to bring up our first guest storyteller. Very excited to have him here. He's an author, he's a storyteller, a comedian, documentary filmmaker. He's performed at the Kennedy Center, and he has his very own storytelling show called Tale, just a few blocks from here on the first Friday of every month. Really excited for him to make his debut with us tonight. Please welcome Harmon Leon.
Hello. When I was 13, my family moved from a really culturally diverse town in New Jersey to Minnesota. Now, if you're not familiar with Minnesota, I'll fill you in. For the most part, it's kind of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Hitler wet dream sort of a place, where the cultural diversity is largely white people and ridiculously white people. And suddenly, I found myself having to go to a really racist school. Not the school itself, that's just a physical building. It was more like the kids going to the school were the racist. And suddenly, I was the target of racism and being picked on. I'm like, what's up with these Minnesota rednecks? And even worse, not only did I have to go to school, but I also had to go to Hebrew school. So I had school followed by yet more school. So, at the end of the day, parked in front of my racist school with Hebrew writing down the side was the Talmud Torah bus. And the last thing you really want to do at the end of the day when kids have been picking on you all day because of your religion is have to get on the Jew bus. But if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And that's actually what got me into comedy. Because I thought, you're going to laugh and make fun of me anyway. You know what I'll do? I'll make fun of myself first, get them laughing, and once they're laughing, I'll completely turn the tables and verbally rip into them. Smash Cut 2023 under St. Mark's, New York City. Thank you very much. And the thing I learned about growing up around racists is being a racist and filled with hate. That's not something you're born with. That's something that takes time and dedication to learn, like HTML or JavaScript. You gotta work really hard at being a complete fucking asshole. And the other thing I learned is the best way to diffuse assholes is with the jokes. And the jokes have always been an important part of my life. They've been there when I need them, through happy times, through sad times. The jokes saved my soul. And when the pandemic hit and wiped away all live comedy, I went through this existential quandary. And I thought about all the shows I've done in my life, for all the people who I've done shows for, and how all those shows no longer exist. And it's been a lot of shows, because I started performing comedy back when I was in high school. When all my other classmates were worried about trying to find a date for prom, I was already out there hustling road gigs.
Hello, my name is Harmon Leon. I would really like to get booked at your comedy club. What follows is a short video segment of my act.
And then the pandemic hit and boom, all live comedy disappeared. This whole entire ecosystem actually is. And I was reminded of this old vaudeville saying that goes, what does the comedian have at the end of his life other than the echo of forgotten laughter? Yeah, that's kind of sad, I know. Look, here's some sad music. Look, here's a sad dance. Sad dance. Sad dance. Look, even the jokes are sad.
The jokes.
But what does the comedian have at the end of his life other than the echo of forgotten laughter? I'll tell you guys what he has. He also has a podcast no one listens to and over 700 Twitter followers because this is the life that we chose. And the world needs the jokes. People need the jokes. So like I said, first time I ever got booked performing comedy, I was in high school. And to promote the gig, the comedy club put a photo of me in the local paper. And because I didn't know better, I made a big wacky face like, because I didn't know better. And my grandma was visiting us at the time. And she saw the photo in the paper, and you'll find this cute. And she went, "Oh, honey, Are you off to go make the funny faces? Is it? This is my grandma's head. She thought that's what stand-up comedy was. You go to a club, stand on stage for an hour in front of a bunch of strangers going, ah! And even though I was a teenager, I was still profoundly philosophical. And I explained, Grandma, you feeble-minded immigrant. The art of stand-up comedy is not, quote-unquote, making the funny faces. It also involves the jokes. And I thought, right there at my first gig in high school, it would take, maybe like a year, 2 years tops to make it big. Little did I realize it'd become a lifetime of living on spaghetti and dreams, people, spaghetti and dreams.
I would really like to get booked at your comedy club.
Now, the reason the jokes are so important to my life, when I was a teenager, the jokes were a way for me and my dad to connect. We didn't connect on a lot of things, but we connected on comedy and the jokes. My dad made me love comedy, and the jokes brought us together. Which means it's now time for the dad material. Now, I always wonder, what is that hole in my life that I'm trying to fill by performing comedy? Like, when I was little, my dad was in the military, and he had like this macho, old school mentality about expressing his feelings. Like, I was well into high school, and it'd be my birthday, and my dad would still greet me with an outstretched arm. Happy birthday, son. Happy birthday. Here is a nice manly man happy birthday handshake. I know, that's also kind of sad. Look, here's some more sad music. Look, here's another sad dance, but a different one. Different sad dance. Look, even the jokes are still sad.
The jokes.
But my parents have always been creepy, depressing. Like, I was in 12th grade, and my mom took me aside, and she told me, she went out, and she bought funeral plots for her and my dad. And she got such a bargain. She just went ahead and bought me a funeral plot. And I'm like, oh great, I'm gonna be known as the guy who lives with his parents for eternity! And because I was in 12th grade and started comedy, my dad asked me when the time comes if I would do his eulogy. And I'm like, oh great, I just started comedy and now I gotta come up with a funeral tight 5? I mean, he wants me to do this because I'm a comedian? Is he expecting me to do the jokes? Is he expecting me to go for laughs?
Howdy, Harmon.
Oh, hey, look, everyone. It's country music legend Hank Williams. What did you make of that last bit where I talk about connecting with my dad over comedy as a teenager and the jokes?
It sounds to me like you're really not trying to make the audience laugh. You're really trying to make your dad laugh.
You know what, country music legend Hank Williams? Duh!
Epilogue.
So what does the comedian have at the end of his life other than the echo of forgotten laughter? First of all, that quote is such fucking bullshit. I mean, what does the accountant have at the end of his life other than the echo of forgotten audits? Because the beauty of live comedy is a shared present moment experience, never to be repeated again, with a group of complete strangers that you try to bring together as a little community, as the insiders. And through all these years of doing comedy since a teenager, what I learned that I really love about comedy is, let let's say together, country music legend Hank Williams. As T.S. Eliot said, return to the place where you started and see it for the very first time. And that, my friends, is how the jokes saved my soul.
The jokes.
Thank you.
All right, keep it going for Harmon Leon, everybody. Wow. If you want to get more listeners for the podcast, my suggestion is change the title to Spaghetti and Dreams. I love that. That's going to be the name of this episode of Awkward Teenage Years, I think. All right, one more time for Harmon, everybody. All right, I want to bring up our next storyteller. Really excited to have him back. He was here not too long ago, told a story that absolutely knocked our socks off. He's an author. He's a Grand Slam champion from the Moth. He's a regular on the Risk live show and podcast. Please give it up for my friend Marc Abbott.
Michael Jackson was, for me, the pinnacle of performers, musician. When I was a child, and I used to listen to the old Jackson 5 songs and the Jackson 5 cartoon, I knew that I wanted to be Michael Jackson when I grew up. As I got older, I took everything in, from Thriller to Beat It. I tried to learn the dance moves. And when I got into LaGuardia Music and Art, the famed school, my goal was to be the next Michael Jackson. I wanted that life. I wanted to be the singer, songwriter, performer, the whole nine. So you can imagine in 1988, when Michael Jackson came to town on his Bad tour, really wanted to see this concert. I had never been to a concert before. And unfortunately, the concert, literally by the time they announced Michael Jackson would be at Madison Square Garden, it sold out. So there was no way to get tickets. The weekend of the concert, I was at the mall with a group of my friends, and I'm coming home, and my father had this old maroon Chevy. I saw him driving like a madman up the street toward me. And I'm like, what the hell is my father doing? And he almost literally jumps the curb, looks out, and remember, this is 88. There's no cell phones, there's no internet, there's no way to get in touch with your kid unless you go to a payphone and call home. And I'm thinking, well, did I forget to call home? Did I forget to check in? And my father's like, where the hell have you been? And I was like, I'm walking home. Get in the car. Get in the car. And I'm like, why? He's like, just get in the car. And left my friend standing on the side of the street and sped home. Not saying why, and he's complaining the whole time. Driving around, can't find you, you don't know nobody. I was like, what happened? He said, just get the hell in the house and get dressed. And I'm like, we're going someplace? And he goes, just get dressed. So I go in, my brother's dressed, my mother's complaining. I'm like, what in the hell happened? Just get dressed. So I get dressed, we leave the house, we get on the subway, and I'm like, where the hell are we going? And my mother goes, Manny, I should explain. Manny is Emmanuel Lewis. For those of you who are of the 80s, know him from Webster. Manuel and my mother and his mother were good friends. My mother was Manuel's math teacher. So apparently, Emmanuel called and said, we're in town, we've got Jackson tickets, get dressed. And so everybody's scrambling except me, because I was at the movies. I had no idea this had happened. So we get to the garden, and it's the most electric thing. It's just people everywhere, crowds going in, and we find Emmanuel, and we sit down, and we have these really good seats, like perfect stage, and Janet is sitting right about 4th row in front of us. So while we're doing this, my brother looks over and he goes, and I'm like, what happened? He goes, look, next to you. So I look over and it's Captain Lou Albano of WWF, and I was like, wow, it's Captain Lou. He goes, no, next to Captain Lou. And I look over, and it's the love of my life, Cyndi Lauper, sitting next to him, and she looks at me, and she's just like, and growing up around Emmanuel, we learned how to behave around famous people. We were those two kids where the freak out was about this big until we were able to freak out. So I didn't say anything, I just kind of waved, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Cyndi Lauper. And Michael comes out and does this 3-hour extravaganza. My father has got his still camera, and he's taking photos like a madman. He's changing film, he's taking, and I'm like, wow, you can't get anything better than this. This is the greatest show I've ever seen. And Man in the Mirror starts, and Emmanuel looks back at us, and he goes, I'll see you guys later. We got to go. And he leaves. Now, Emmanuel lived in Brooklyn, but for whatever reason, he was staying in a hotel in Manhattan. And we leave the garden, and we start making our way east. And my mom said, well, Emmanuel said he wanted us to come hang out, this, that, the other. I was like, okay, great. So we get to the hotel, go in, and there's just crowds of people. It's the Helmsley Hotel. Everybody remembers Leona Helmsley. And it's this beautiful hotel, and we go in, but it's just like people in town for the concert and all of this other stuff. So we're standing there waiting. They have to call up to tell Manuel we're here. Manuel's sister comes down. She goes, come, we're going to go on back here. We're going to get out of this area. We're going to go over here. So we get on the elevator, and as we kind of bunch in, and there's some people behind us, and I see my brother do this, and he's like, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? And he goes, I'll tell you when we get off. I was like, what happened? He's like, I'll tell you when we get off. So we get off the elevator. My father turns around. He's like, oh, hey. And it's Kool and the Gang. Apparently, my brother had a problem with Kool and the Gang. I don't know what it was, but he didn't like Kool and the Gang. And I'm like, why the hell is Kool and the Gang on the elevator? And as we get off, we turn this corner in this huge ballroom. And now I'm starting to see people I know. Sugar Ray Leonard. My mother's freaking out because there's Earth, Wind, and Fire. And there's all of these selected celebrities. And I'm like, and I'm standing around, and my father's that guy like, what are you standing around for? So we walk through the thing, and I'm said to Manny's sister, Kizzy, where the hell are we going? And she's like, Manuel is back here. So we go around the corner, and there's Manuel standing at the far end of this hallway, and he's like, oh, you made it. Come here. And we go to him, walk into the room, and standing in the middle of the room, put it up. There are no words. We are standing there, and my father's clicking away, and there's Emmanuel's family talking to Michael. Manny's like, oh, this is my school teacher and everything, and he's greeting my mother. My brother kind of aimlessly walks in, and I'm still sort of like, that can't be him. And he's saying hello to everybody, and then he's like, oh, this is my friend Mark, he's a big fan of yours, this, that, the other. And Michael is the most gracious man you will ever meet. He signed autographs, he took photos, he talked with our family. I said nothing. I sat there dumbfounded the whole time. And finally, my father leans over and he goes, tell the man that you go to LaGuardia and you sing. I'm like, what? And he goes, tell him you sing. Maybe you can get something out of this. I'm like, I'm not singing from Michael Jackson. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And there are people everywhere. Like, they're coming in and out of the rooms and this, that, the other thing. My father's over there talking to some guy about camera work and all of this other stuff. And it suddenly starts to hit me. Michael is back here, not out there, because he can't even be in the same room with other famous people because he'll get mobbed. And I'm thinking, is this actually what I want to grow up to be? Like, not being able to go out, not being able to just be with your friends? Because I experienced that with Emmanuel. When you're famous like that, you just can't be out because people don't know how to act. And Michael did everything. He signed everything, and he wished us well. 45 minutes in this room with this man, and we leave and we start heading home, and I'm like in deep thought on the train. And my mother's like, I'm assuming you're never gonna forget this night in your life, are you? And I was like, no, this changes some things. So the next day, my father goes to the 1 hour photo shop because he's gotta get the photos. There is no internet, there's no downloading, and he was not sending his photos out to be stolen. So he had to go to the mall and stand there for an hour while they processed the film, and the people in there lost their minds when they saw the pictures. As we're in the house, my brother and I are in the basement. We come upstairs, and my mother's like on the phone, and she's like, no, it's okay, no, thanks anyway. No, we're good. She hangs up, and I was like, well, who is that? She goes, that was Emmanuel. He wanted to know if you guys wanted to hang out with him and Michael for the day. And I told him no. What? And she's like, well, you don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. And I'm like, and she goes, oh, and when your father gets home, I got something I need to tell him too. And when my dad gets home and he's showing the photos and everything, my mother goes, oh, by the way, Quincy said thank you. And my father's like, Quincy who? And she's like, Quincy Jones. And he's like, I didn't meet Quincy Jones. She goes, the man you were talking to about the camera. This is my father's a huge Quincy Jones fan, but did not know he was talking to Quincy Jones. So now he's mad because now he wanted to take us to meet Michael so he can meet Quincy. But after going to school on Monday and showing the pictures and not getting the response I thought I was going to get, with people going, oh, you think you're the shit because you met Michael Jackson. Yeah, I do, because it's Michael Jackson, 1988. But I realized at that moment that that was not the life I wanted. And I admired Michael for being able to do all of the things he could do and perform. And at its best, he was happiest when he was around people who were normal and didn't fawn him and didn't idolize him every single second. And I thought to myself, you know what? I would rather have the quiet life of being famous than being a recluse and never being able to enjoy life to the fullest. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark. That reminds me, I don't think I've ever told this story here, but when I was 18, I was freshman in college here in New York City, and I stumbled upon one night the after party for the VH1 Fashion Awards. I don't know if y'all remember that used to be a thing. And I'm just walking in the village, you know, taking it all in the fall of my freshman year, and all of a sudden, all these celebrities start walking out of this place that used to be here called Moomba. And there's Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Donald Trump. Yeah. I mean, we knew he was a piece of shit. We didn't know he was that big a piece of shit yet. And I shook his hand that night, which I'm still, you know, forever dirty. But my favorite moment was actually Salma Hayek came out. And I mean, you know, she's just absolute knockout. And she walks right up to me, right? And she's wasted. And she's got that look in her eyes. And she's like, so where are we going next? And I was like, oh, anywhere. Anywhere you want to go. And then she's like, okay, great. And then some, you know, big goon guy comes and like whisks her away before anything else happened. But that was my big New York celebrity moment. But thank you so much for sharing, Mark. That's amazing. One more time for Mark, everybody. All right, we're going to keep the show moving along here. We've got another first-timer coming to our show, to our stage next. She is a 3-time winner of the Moth Story Slam. She's been on Stories from the Stage, and she's won the Glastonbury Poetry Slam twice. Is that right? Yeah, okay. I mean, that's very impressive. And we're really excited to have her here. Please welcome Torrey Shine.
Oh, I'm 14, going on 15. It's my freshman year of high school. I'm not very athletic, but my dad says, you have to do a sport. So I joined the wrestling team. In 1997, Massachusetts is one of the only states that has co-ed high school wrestling. And that year in particular, my high school's wrestling team is definitely co-ed. Right? 'Cause there are 26 guys, and there's me. And that's co-ed, right? And I stand out like a sore thumb, right? I'm short, and I'm chubby and curvy with these great big heavy boobs. And the uniform, it's this spandex singlet that only goes up to about here. So I have to wear this bulky sports bra underneath. And I have this long, flowing, grabbable hair. So I have to tuck all of my hair up into a bright blue Speedo swim cap. I look ridiculous. And the other people on my team, they're real athletes. Right? Like, so for example, our team captain, he's really good. One of my other teammates is Captain America. Okay, so when I say Captain America, I mean Chris Evans, the actor who plays Captain America, the one People magazine named the sexiest man alive. But this is 1997. Chris Evans isn't Captain America yet. He's just a kid that I grew up with and went to public school with. He's my teammate. He's really good in all the school plays. Whereas me, I'm like a prepubescent Pepper Potts. I am athletically outmatched by the rest of my team. At the end of every practice, we'll do 20 push-ups. I can't do even a single push-up. I mean, not a real push-up. And so what I have to do is what my team calls girl push-ups from my knees. And coach says if I'm going to do girl push-ups, well, then I've got to do twice as many. So I do. And the thing is, it's not like anyone is mean to me. But I feel very socially isolated from the rest of the team. Like we get dressed in different locker rooms. There's just a lot of bonding and camaraderie that I'm excluded from, and it makes it even harder. Though I am the only girl in my high school who is sometimes allowed into the boys' locker room. And that's because the boys' locker room is the only room in our high school with a scale. And weight is very important in wrestling. Because when you compete, they put you up pound for pound against somebody in the same weight class as you. So when it's time to get weighed in, they make sure nobody's naked, and I get escorted into the boys' locker room, and I step on the scale in front of the team, and they check my weight. Top of the season, I weigh 142 pounds, and that puts me in the weight class of 145. So every time we go up against another school in a competition, before the competition, we have an internal tournament within our high school to figure out who's the best wrestler in each weight class. And we wrestle against each other. And whoever wins each weight class gets to represent our school in the varsity match. So first match of the season, I make the varsity team. It's true. Thank you. It's not because I'm good. No, like if you think this story is going to end with me becoming competitive at pound for pound co-ed high school wrestling, you need to let that dream go. That's not going to happen. No, it's not because I'm good, and it's not because I'm a girl. It's got nothing to do with gender. It's the weirdest thing because we have a really big team, and there are people bigger than me, and there are people smaller than me. But for some weird, random reason, I am the only person smack in the middle at 145. And so there's nobody to challenge me, and I win by default. So that means that coach either has to put my name on the roster, or we forfeit that match. Varsity, right? Yeah. So the first match of the season, we get all dressed up, and they call 135, and we send out the future Captain America. And they call 140, and we send out our team captain. And then they call my weight class, which is 145. And the other team sends out their team captain. And this guy is stacked. Like, I know pound for pound we're the same weight, but like for every pound that I have of boob, he has a pound of bicep. Every pound I have of butt, he has pounds of tricep. I have been on the team for 3 weeks. This guy was state champ last year. His name is Kovalchik. For real. This is like a total David and Goliath kind of moment, except instead of a slingshot, I've got all of my hair wrapped up in a bright blue Speedo swim cap. So coach looks at me and he's like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm pumped up. I'm like, "Yeah, coach, pull me in." And he says, "Go get him, Shinneman." I step into the ring. So I pivot left. I pivot right. Kovalchik takes one step forward. He puts his hands on my hips, lifts me up into the air, and then he drops me like a doll. He doesn't even have to get on top of me because I land on my back. I am pinned in 9 seconds. This first match earns me the nickname that will follow me the rest of the season, Torrey Split Second Shinneman. It's really embarrassing, yeah. But I don't quit. I keep showing up. I run laps. I lift weights. Sometimes after school, I practice wrestling with my dog. She's a golden retriever. I can totally get her in a full Nelson. And I do my 40 girl push-ups during practice. And I do another 40 before I go to bed. I do 40 more when I wake up. By the end of the season, I am doing real push-ups side by side with the rest of the team. I get stronger. I get better. I am still the worst person on the team. Right? Everybody else is getting stronger and better too. And they're actually improving at a faster rate than me. But I keep showing up. 5 days a week, I go to practice and I get pinned by our team captain. I get pinned by the 16-year-old boy who will one day be called the sexiest man alive. I get pinned by every other person on the team because I really am like the worst on the team. I'm stepping on bathroom scales in men's locker rooms across eastern Massachusetts. And every week I put on the Speedo singlet and my bright blue Speedo swim cap. I step into the ring and I face that town's version of Kovalchik. And I get my ass kicked every single time. So at the end of the season, there's this big ceremony. And coach, he's handing out the varsity letters, and then he calls my name. And I know I was awful. I really was awful. And I know I was only on varsity by some weird statistical default, but I didn't quit. And that day, I become the first female in history to earn a varsity letter on my high school's co-ed wrestling team. Thank you.
Wonderful. Torrey Shine, everybody. Oh, I have so much to say. First of all, you got to talk to Grant after the show. Grant has another wrestling story, and I wish you had been in Alabama so you two could have wrestled each other. That would have been the best. Yeah. One thing I love about the show is that we never have the end of the story is and then I was state champion or I scored the winning goal. It's always some kind of spectacular fail because we're telling stories in a basement about it in our adulthood, right? So always going to end that way. But the thing about the push-ups, though, it made me think about the presidential fitness test. Do you remember this? Did everybody do the presidential fitness test? The craziest thing. And I could never do the pull-ups as a kid. I was really scrawny, weak kid when I had to do that, and I could never do one pull-up. I think you had to do 4 or 5 to pass. And so I couldn't get my medal or whatever you get for it. I think maybe I did a pull-up in my 20s once, but I definitely can't do one now. But one more time for Torrey, everybody. We love our athletic stories. All right, keeping this show moving. We've got a real theme growing here of celebrity sightings, I feel like, and this one is gonna be part of that too. So we're really excited to have her here. She's a top-notch freelance editor, if anybody's looking for an editor after the show, and an avid traveler. She's performed this and other stories at the Moth and the Story Collider, Cringe and Mortified. Really excited to have her here for the first time with us. Please welcome Mia Lipsit.
Thank you. Dear Rick, I've decided that I'm going to write you a letter every week or so. That might seem a little extreme, but I want to make sure that you've read them. I don't know if you read it, since you must get tons of mail every day, but I had sent you a birthday card. Even if you did read it, I doubt that you remember the story I told you, since you get so many letters. I'll keep it short this time. On June 18th, I went to your concert at Carnegie Hall the first night. I was determined to meet you, so I stood outside your hotel for 2 hours. Then you came and I asked you for a kiss, and then you kissed me. I was 13 years old. Extremely problematic, but we'll leave that aside for now. It must have been the most wonderful and incredible experience of my entire life, all 13 years. It's so hard for me to explain my feelings, but I suppose since I'm not telling you face to face, although I wish I was, I've stalled too much already. So here goes. I love you. There, I did it. I mean, really, I do. I know you must get letters from millions of infatuated, starstruck women and girls who tell you they love you. But they're just the kind of people who fall in love with stars all the time. They just fall right out again as soon as a great-looking new one comes along. Well, I'm not like that. I've fallen so much in love with you, I don't know what to do anymore. You're all I ever think about. I sleep, eat, and breathe Rick Springfield. All my friends think I'm crazy, and I am. Still Crazy for You, that's a lesser-known Springfield song. Only he knew it. It's spelled with a 4 in the for you. My best friend, Susan, also says she's in love with you. People ask who I think loves you more. But I know deep down in my heart that she could never love you and feel for you the way that I do. I've fallen so deeply in love with you, I just can't get out. And I don't want to. Like the song goes, I honestly love you. I only wish you could feel the same way about me. You don't even know me. But maybe through all of these letters I'll be writing, we can get to know each other better. I know how busy you are, but if you could just try and write back to me, just so I'll know that you've read my letters. It doesn't have to be long or anything like that, but, just to let me know. I know this letter has gotten very lengthy, but don't worry, you won't have to be reading such long letters anymore. I've poured my heart out enough in this one. So that was 13-year-old me. And I was so hopelessly in love with Rick Springfield that watching him on General Hospital, listening to his albums, and gazing longingly at the posters on my walls just was not enough for me. So I decided that I had to write to him regularly. This is a fact that I had actually managed to block out of my memory for over 25 years. Imagine that. Until one fateful day when I was going through boxes of my childhood things at my parents' house. So I'm going through all this stuff, and the concert programs, the posters, the Teen Beat clippings, none of this stuff came as a surprise to me. I mean, look, I save everything, clearly. But what was not expected was letter upon letter of Dear Rick. So presumably I had written to him so that he would, get to know me and fall in love with me. And what I did was I did a test run of each letter, and that's what these are. These are the real drafts, and I saved them presumably for posterity, you know, the children and grandchildren that Rick and I would obviously have someday. I can't really explain to you why I was so obsessed with Rick Springfield, other than the obvious. I mean, you know, he was beautiful and talented and etc. But the thing is that I had developed a really unhealthy obsession with soap operas by the time I was 11 years old. And I think that, you know, having this infatuation with an unattainable man was somehow part of this adult world that I thought I was living in inside my head. And, you know, sure, I had crushes on boys in junior high school, but usually anyone who expressed interest in me, I just rejected them. Because, I mean, what pimply, pubescent boy could possibly compete with the idea of Rick Springfield that I had in my head? He was the perfect man. And so I was hopelessly in love with him. And so I wrote to him. And there were 32 letters in all, I neglected to mention. I wasn't kidding. I saved the drafts and I numbered them sequentially. And you know, I figured maybe that's just what 13-year-olds do, right? And some of the more pathetic ones keep doing it until they're 16. The other people who do things like that, if you think about it, are stalkers. So I realized that if this had taken place not in the 80s, but within the last 10 or 20 years, probably there would be an FBI file on me. And as evidence, I would like to present letter number 6, which was probably the first red flag to the people who were actually reading Rick Springfield's fan mail. Dear Rick, I'm sorry I haven't written in so long, but I've been terribly busy lately. Doing my homework? I don't know. I was going to write to you last week, but I got sidetracked, which is lucky, because when I came home a few days later, my roommate told me I had gotten a letter from Rick Springfield, i.e., my mother. Like, I wanted him to think that I was a grown-up, and I figured, oh, Three's Company, adults live with roommates. Sorry, I'd gotten a letter from Rick Springfield. Of course, I knew it was too good to be true. I knew you couldn't actually have written to me personally, although I couldn't keep myself from hoping. As it turned out, it wasn't from you, but from someone named Cameron Schmidt, who, of course, assured me that between takes on the set and, between takes on the set, you had browsed through my gift and fan mail, and even took a minute out of your busy schedule to write me the enclosed card, which said, "Thanks," with an X, signed Rick Springfield. Please, that's all I get? I know you didn't write that to me. You have a million made up and send the same thing to all of your fans. By the way, if you're reading this right now, Cameron, or anyone else, I advise you to stop and make sure that this card and all my other letters go directly to Rick. They are for him to read and nobody else but him. I'm sorry if I sounded so angry, but I'm usually not this hot-headed. It's just that I'm very hurt. I'll never know if you know who I am or even care. Please, if you can, write back to me personally. It's the only way I'll know that you, and only you, Rick, not Cameron, if you're there, give this to Rick, has read my letters. I love you more than anything else in the entire world, and I know how awful that is, really, but I can't help the way I feel. The feelings are real, they're there, and I'm stuck with them. And so are you. Stalker alert. or at least a guilty conscience for breaking some poor woman's heart. Don't think that I'm always like this, please. If you read my other letters, you'd know exactly what kind of nice, gentle, normal person I am. And how real and deep the love I have for you is. Once again, I'm sorry, but I do believe in speaking my mind, especially about things I truly believe in, like my love for you. Deep in my heart, I know it'll last forever. All my love, Mia. So, spoiler, it didn't. Eventually, I stopped writing to Rick, and I don't know why or how. It wasn't a conscious decision that I made. I moved on to high school, and I think eventually I just started living the life of a normal 16-year-old, making new friends and talking to them about things other than General Hospital, thinking about what might look good on my college application, and of course, getting crushes on real-life boys, the kind that might actually like me back. So while I will admit that one or two of those crushes might have veered into obsessively unhealthy territory, the good news is that by then I was smart enough to know not to actually send the letters that I wrote to them. Thank you.
All right, that was great. I never wrote her any letters, but for me, it was Belinda Carlisle, who I loved. I don't know if y'all remember her, the Heaven on Earth singer. She was the best. Yeah. So one more time for Mia, everybody. Just amazing treasure trove there of letters. So we have one more storyteller for you, and then we'll get to the end of the show. But before we do that, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping here. Mia actually wrote us an email with a pitch for her story, and that's how she got on the show. And Torrey sent us a message on Instagram. That's how she got here tonight. And so we want to tell you, like, if you're out there thinking, hearing these stories and thinking, I've got a good story about my teenage years, and we'd love for you to tell us about it. So you can email us at the awkwardteenageyears@gmail.com. Just like, 2 to 3 sentences, a couple paragraphs, something brief of what your story is, and we'll get right back to you about it. If you want to reach us on social media, probably the best thing to do is message us on Instagram. We're at Awkward Teenage Years there. We're also at Awkward Teenage Years on the Facebook, which we're not super active on. And then there's Twitter. I guess Twitter's not going to die. We thought it was going to die. But we're not going to pay for the blue check mark. We're like LeBron, okay? We're not going to do it. So you'll probably never see our posts. But you could reach out to us there if you really want to. And then we also have all of our past shows on our YouTube page, which you can reach by going to youtube.com/@awkwardteenageyears. And we did this show originally. It was Grant and I and Anastasia Maximenko. We did this during the Frigid Festival in 2020, right before the pandemic started. And then we did online shows. Remember those? I know we've all tried to block them out, but they happened. And we did like 14 or 15 of them. Jamie was on one. And those are all on our YouTube. And then all of our live shows that we've done since then are up there, as well as this one will be in a few weeks' time. So please check us out on the YouTube. And is that all the things? I think that's all the things. Yeah, good. All right, good job, Will. Okay, so let's bring up our final. Oh, sorry. There's one more thing I wanted to say, because I meant to say it earlier and I forgot. But you're here at a storytelling show. Clearly you like storytelling. Harmon has a storytelling show this Friday night. His show Tale is at the Red Room above the KGB bar over there on 4th Street at 2nd Avenue. So check that out Friday night. It's a great show that I had the pleasure of doing a few months ago. That's really everything. Okay, so our final storyteller. We're really excited to be bringing him back for his 3rd appearance on our show. He's one of our favorites. He hails from Beaumont, Texas. He's done voices for Beavis and Butthead. I didn't know that. That's amazing. And you should really follow his TikTok. He has 61,000 followers, and his videos of his stories and heels have been viewed over 4 million times, which is amazing. Please welcome Mr. Jamie Brickhouse.
Thank you. Round of applause for the other storytellers who were just amazing. Oh, there we go. All right. So, I am staring at the nurse of the bleeding lips, and her red lipstick bleeds into her pancake makeup, which makes her resting bitch face all the more ghoulish. And I'm desperate, and she's my last hope, and I can't get past her. So it all started my junior year in high school, 1985, when I was an escort. Not that kind of escort. I was an escort at the Neches River Festival, which is the social event of the season in Beaumont, Texas. And high school girls are princesses, and one of them will be crowned queen of the Neches River. And I was an escort to one of the princesses, and I did it because I liked all the social activities and I liked dressing up. But the night of the coronation, my princess did not get crowned. Went to the coronation ball, and then I couldn't wait to ditch everybody and head downtown to the Copa, which was Beaumont's gay bar. And I was excited because I was sure I was going to get some action in my escort tuxedo. And at this point, I was sexually active. I had been so for about a year and a half, but I was in the closet. I mean, my parents, they didn't know and they couldn't know, and certainly my classmates in my Catholic high school did not know, although my best friend Nicole knew, but she was already in college. And anyway, so I go down there and I'm really excited, and I park my car and I'm headed to the entrance. And there is this tall, lanky, sexy guy standing on the corner where the bar is, and he's spotlit by the street light above, and he has dark Duran Duran hair. Remember, this is the 1980s. And as I'm going in, I smile at him, and he smiles at me, and he winks, and then I head into the bar thinking he's going to follow. And yes, I'm underage, but I knew the manager of the bar, so I was able to get in there. And I hit the dance floor, and the place is hopping, and I'm twirling this way and that way and flirting with this guy and that guy, and I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror to see what they're seeing, and there I am in my white dinner jacket and loosened bow tie and my white captain's hat that's askew, and I'm like, oh. And guys are buying me Jack and Coke, but I don't close the deal. And I head out of the bar, and Duran Duran guy is still there. And I get in my car, and I pull around, and I stop where he is, and I roll down the window, and I say, hi. And he comes over and puts his head in the window, and he says, hey. I said, what's going on? He said, oh, not much now. I'm staying not far from here if you want to come over. And I said, sure. And he gets in. And I said, why didn't you go in the bar? We could have danced the night away. And he said, well, you know what I am, right? And I said, yeah, you're a fag like me, and I can say that. And he says, well, yeah, but I was working. I'm an escort? He said, but I'm off duty now. I said, oh. I said, well, I'm an escort too. And I took off my captain's hat and tossed it in the back seat, and I said, I'm off duty too. So we go to where he's staying, and he is headed to Houston after that for, where the big money is. And I thought, yeah, he's probably a pretty good escort because he's definitely talented and most definitely gifted. And I was really turned on by the whole thing. I'm like, my God, my first prostitute, and I'm getting it for free. So, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, I notice it's a little uncomfortable to poop. And I notice there's some blood. And I'm like, ugh. And then a couple of days, more blood, more discomfort. And then I let a week go by, and I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's nothing. But it's not, and it's getting worse, whatever it is. And then I feel down there, and there's something growing. And I do a self-examination with my mother's compact makeup mirror, and it looks like little white hamster turds. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And I didn't know, and I didn't. There was no one I could tell. I couldn't tell my parents. I wasn't going to tell them, and I couldn't tell the high school guidance counselor at my Catholic high school. No way. And my friend when Nicole was, off at college in long distance, I might get busted. Why are you calling Nicole? Well, because I don't know what. And so I keep thinking it's going to correct itself, and it's not, and it's becoming more painful, and there's more blood. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take care of this. I am going to go to the free clinic on the other side of town. And so I go to the free clinic, and I'm in the waiting room, and I'm nervous as a whore in church, and I'm the only white kid there, and I'm the only guy in the waiting room. And finally the nurse brings me back, and she is this Kathy Bates type, although Kathy Bates didn't exist then, or she wasn't famous then, but that's who she was. And so I'm bent over, and she says, "Oh, honey, you got anal warts." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Anal warts, it's a sexually transmitted thing, and they can be genital warts, they can be on your genitals or on your penis or your vagina, but that's." And I said, and I said, "Well, can you get rid of them?" And she said, "Darling, you have got a head of cauliflower growing out of your ass. We can't take care of it here." And I said, "Well, what do I do?" And she said, "You've got to go to the proctologist." I said, "Okay. You've got to see Dr. Foudy." And I was like, "Can I see somebody else?" She said, "No, honey, he's the only game in town." Dr. Foudy, his son was a classmate of mine. And I was like, I can't go to Dr. Foudy. What if he tells his son? I can imagine the dinner table. "Oh, well, your classmate, Jamie Brickhouse, was in today. He's got cauliflower growing out of his ass. Pass the green beans." And you have to understand, this was 1985. Nobody ate cauliflower. It was not the rage that it is today. So again, I'm like, all right, I'm a big boy. I'll take care of this. And I naively make my own appointment at Dr. Foudy's office. And I show up there alone, and that is when I greet the nurse of the bleeding lips. And she very uncompassionately explains that, "I'm sorry, but the doctor cannot see you. You should know better. I mean, you're underage, your parents, I'm sure you're on your parents' insurance, and they're going to have to know about this. And, I'm sorry, we cannot help you." And she looked at me like I had cooties, which I guess I did. But I mean, come on. In her line of work, she should be used to this. And she made me feel so alone and so ashamed, which is how I was feeling this past 6 weeks. So I leave dejected. Plan C. I tell my father that something weird is going on down there, and maybe I need to see a doctor. So he takes me to see the family doctor. He's this avuncular Captain Kangaroo type. And he's examining me, and he looks, and he says, oh my. I said, "Kind of like cauliflower, right?" And he says, "Yeah, that's a very good description." And he said, "Son, I'm afraid I can't handle this here. You're going to need to see," in her mouth, "Dr. Foudy." He goes, "Dr. Foudy." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So then my parents make the appointment at Dr. Foudy's, and I show up with both of my parents, my mother and my father, and there's the nurse of the bleeding lips, and I'm like, "Please don't give me away." And she's not nice, but she's not the C-U-N-T she was when I saw her on my own. And she doesn't give me away. And then I go in and see Dr. Foudy by myself, and he examines me, and he says, "Yes, it's anal warts." And he says, they'll have to be removed surgically in the hospital. He said, had you have anal sex with a man?" And I said, "Yes." He said, do your parents know?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Do you want me not to tell them?" And I said, yes. So he calls my parents in, and he tells them that I have these things called anal warts. He said it's a virus, and he's trying to, gloss over it. And my mother says, well, how did he get it? And he said, oh, well, there's all kinds of ways. He could have gotten it from sharing a gym towel. A gym towel? He hasn't taken PE in 2 years. And thank God, no one pressed any further. And as my parents and I are leaving Dr. Faudi's office, I can feel us all stepping over that mythological gym towel on the floor. So I have the surgery. It goes fine. And when I come back from the hospital, my post-menopausal mother hands me a box of Stay-Free mini pads and for the post-surgery flow. And she says, well, I thought I was through with these, but here you go. And so I was just so relieved they didn't find out, and I was like, okay, it's over, and I'm never telling another person again as long as I live, and never talking about this ever again. So 4 years later, I'm a junior in college, and I'm an official adult. I'm 21 years old. I have come out to my parents and to everybody else, and I'm living my best gay life, and I have a coterie of straight girlfriends, and we talk about everything, and we talk about all of our hookups and what we're doing sexually. And one day, I am in the library studying with one of them, and she's visibly upset. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, I just came from the doctor, and I've got an STD. And I said, well, what is it? She said, I don't want to say it. And so she writes something on a piece of paper and slides it across the table. And I look at it, and it just says vaginal warts. And I said, oh, I had these too. She said, vaginal warts? And I said, no, anal warts, but it's all the same thing. And I reach my hand across the table, and I put it on top of her hand. And I said, you're going to be okay. And you don't have to go through this alone. Thank you.
All right, Jamie Brickhouse, everybody. What a nice, heartwarming way to end the show. Ah, I love it. Let's hear it one more time for Jamie, for Mia, and Torrey, and Mark, and Harmon. We had 5 great stories tonight. So glad you're all here for it. We do this the first Wednesday of every month here at Under St. Mark's. We're going to be back here on May 3rd. Is that? Let's say May 3rd. So please, tell your friends if you had a bad time, tell your enemies, and we hope to see you back here sometime soon. Thanks for coming.